What's up, everybody? I hope all you are having a fantastic week, enjoying the Stanley Cup playoffs. Today we have the second Ask Me Anything episode of the postseason. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like this year's first round has been amazing. The only series that's over up until this point is Colorado-Nashville. That was obviously a sweep in favor of the Avalanche, but every other series is still going on, and it's looking like there's a really good chance we're going to get more than a couple of Game 7s, and I'm all for that. There's a ton of fantastic questions this week, and as always, I want to give a huge thank you to every single one of you who left a question on the post. Even the ones that don't get featured in the video, I do read them and I appreciate every single one. So with that all being said, let's go ahead and get started. The first question comes from Isaac Hartman, who says, how do you feel about your picks right now? So pretty simple, just kind of an update on how my bracket is looking. It's not too bad. I got one right already, obviously, with Colorado sweeping Nashville. I had Colorado in 5 games though, so I didn't get the game amount right, but obviously got the winner right, but that one was going to be easy anyways. My Penguins in 6 prediction is looking pretty good. I still feel good about Leafs in 7, still feel good about picking the Panthers to win. Even though it's been a lot more difficult for the Flames than I initially expected it to be, I still feel confident in them coming out of their first round matchup against Dallas. Really the only ones that aren't looking great are Edmonton, but I had them in 7, so I still feel like that one could happen. I took Boston in 6, so that's already out the window, but hey, they could still win the series in 7. And then I also had Minnesota in 7 over St. Louis, and they're currently down 3-2, so in order for that prediction to come true, they have to squeak out a Game 6 in St. Louis, which is definitely going to be tough. But I would say at this point, overall, I feel pretty decent about how my bracket's going. The next question we have comes from Zach, who says, this isn't playoff related, but where do you think Trotz will end up? Detroit and Philly both need coaches. Sure, it's not playoff related, but I didn't make a video on this topic, so I figured it would be fun to touch on in this Ask Me Anything. For one, I don't really understand the decision by Lou Lamoriello to let Barry Trotz go. Sure, the Islanders had a pretty disappointing season, but let's not forget that Barry Trotz took this team to back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals before this season, and obviously in his final season with the Capitals before becoming Islanders head coach, he literally won the Stanley Cup with Washington. Barry Trotz is a fantastic coach. He's definitely going to be the most sought-after coach that's available this offseason, in my opinion. I have seen a lot of Red Wings fans on Twitter saying they don't want Barry Trotz as head coach because of his style of coaching and the systems that he implements. Obviously, it's very defense-oriented, and that's something the Red Wings have dealt with Jeff Blashill, over his tenure with the team, and it is boring to watch, but you can't argue with results. I just want to see my team win games, and over the past 4 or 5 seasons, that's exactly what Barry Trotz has done. He's won games for whatever team he's coaching. He's put up good results, and I would love to see him behind Detroit's bench come next season. Moving along now, the next question we have comes from Vicky Griffin, who says, thoughts on the Avalanche sweep, and with that, how do you think they will do in the second round, and if they can finally get out of it? Love the content, keep it up, thank you for the support. Obviously, Colorado looked legit in that first round. Nashville was just completely outmatched, but I honestly feel like it would have been a blessing in disguise for Colorado if maybe that was like even just a 5 or a 6 game series, because now they're gonna have to sit back and watch for a good amount of time until the second round begins, and there could be a little bit of rust when the second round kicks off. Obviously, they can practice as much as they want, they can make the practices as intense as ever, but it's still not going to be the same as playing a playoff game against another team. This is exactly how the playoffs started for Colorado last season. They swept St. Louis in the first round, and then obviously once again got bounced in the second round. I am pretty confident that they should be able to get out of the second round this year and get over that hump, make the Western Conference Finals, but like I said, I just feel like maybe they would have been a little bit better off if they got tested a little bit more in that first round, faced a little bit of adversity, because they really didn't. The next question we have comes from Ben, who says, how far can Domingue take the Pens? Do you think he can survive until Jarry comes back, or are they second round exits? Also, if he keeps up the great work, could he have a chance at starting over Jarry? This is definitely a tough question. I wouldn't even say Louis Domingue has been like lights out for Pittsburgh so far in these playoffs. He's got a 3.40 goals against average, around a 905 save percentage. He's definitely been good enough, and he's been outplaying Igor Shesterkin, which is pretty crazy to think about. That being said though, I feel like when Tristan Jarry's ready to come back, you probably give him a start no matter what, unless say it's in like an elimination game and Louis Domingue is coming off of a shutout or something like that. And as far as the other part of your question goes, how far can Domingue take the Penguins? I mean, I had them going to the conference finals in my bracket, but I didn't account for the fact that Louis Domingue would be their starter. But as we know, goaltending in the NHL is incredibly random, and out of nowhere, random goalies can get hot and go on runs. I feel really good about what I've seen from Pittsburgh as a team so far in the first round against the Rangers, so whether it's Tristan Jarry or Louis Domingue starting, I feel like they have a really good chance at making the conference finals this year. The next question we have comes from that guy, another one that's not really about the playoffs, but do you think Frederik Andersen should have been a Vezina finalist? Love the content, thank you for the support. I'm honestly really surprised Freddie Andersen wasn't at least a finalist for the Vezina trophy. I think he should have been 100%, probably over UC Saros. If I were to make a ballot my finalists would have been Igor Shesterkin, Jacob Markstrom, and Frederik Andersen. He finished the regular season second in goals against average, only behind Shesterkin. He was third in save percentage. According to Evolving Hockey, he was second in goals saved above expected as well, only behind Shesterkin. He had an amazing season. If the NHL had an award, kind of like what the NFL has with Comeback Player of the Year, I really feel like Freddie Andersen would have been a prime candidate for that because he bounced back in a massive way this season after having a pretty rough last year in Toronto. Now, no matter what, would Freddie Andersen have won the Vezina? No, I feel like it's 99.9% sure going to Igor Shesterkin, but I do still feel like at the very least, Freddie Andersen should have been one of the 3 finalists. The next question we have comes from Jacoby Andrew, who says most surprising player / most disappointing player this playoffs, and also thank you for the kind words. It's obviously still very early, most of the first round matchups are not over just yet, but I will throw out a couple of names, starting with the most surprising player. How about Troy Stecher in Los Angeles? He's gotten into 2 games so far and has 2 goals and 2 assists for 4 points. I love to see this as a Red Wings fan, love to see Stecher thriving. What an underrated pickup he was for the Kings at the deadline. I'm pretty sure they only gave up a 7th round pick for him. Stecher literally only had 3 points all regular season, albeit he only played 29 games, but still 3 points in 29 games in the regular season compared to 4 already in just 2 playoff games. That's pretty crazy. Another player that's been pretty surprising, Mike Matheson in Pittsburgh. He's got 5 points in just 4 games, been a pretty big part of Pittsburgh's success so far. And as far as disappointing player goes, I know who it's going to be without even really thinking about it. I hate to do it because I love this player, but Igor Shesterkin in New York I feel like has to be the answer here. He's looked very average in the first round so far against Pittsburgh, albeit it's only been 4 games, and at times he even looks below average. He's got a 4.25 goals against average, just a 905 save percentage. Obviously NHL players, they go through their ups and downs, goaltenders especially, but based off of the regular season Shesterkin had, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't surprised by this. He's definitely going to win the Vezina Trophy, and seeing as how Shesterkin is playing, this poorly, and the Rangers are down 3-1 in the series, I feel like that's pretty telling as to how important he was to them during the regular season and to their team's success. And that's one of the reasons why I predicted the Pittsburgh Penguins to beat the Rangers in 6 in my bracket, because I didn't really view the Rangers as legit contenders, as actually being one of the better teams in the league like the standings showed. Their wins, their points, all that was obviously propped up by the amazing, unbelievable season that Shesterkin had, and now that he's struggling a little bit, it's really showing in the Rangers play. Moving on now, the next question we have comes from Trevor Haskell, who says, are the Leafs actually going to beat Tampa this year, or do you think they will inevitably choke the last 2 games like the 3-1 series lead collapse versus Montreal last year? And thank you for the kind words. I really do think this is the year the Leafs do it. I had them going all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals in my bracket. I have them beating Tampa in 7. I still think the series is going 7. I find it hard to believe Toronto's going to close it out in 6 in Tampa. For Leafs fans' sake, I hope they do. For Steve Dangle's sake, I hope they do. I don't think that poor man can go through another Game 7, especially against the Tampa Bay Lightning. But man, I was so impressed by the Leafs last night. They got down 2-0 early, and then they went down on a 5-on-3 while it was already 2-0 Tampa Bay. They easily could have rolled over, and that game could have been, 7-0 Tampa by the end of things. But the Leafs stuck with it. They were able to tie the game at 2, then obviously took the lead, and then Tampa tied it back up again, and that's another scenario, another situation where the Leafs could have rolled over, but they got the lead right back with about 6 minutes left, and then were obviously able to hold on. An absolutely massive win. They have all the momentum going back to Tampa for Game 6. It should be a pretty crazy game, but yeah, I do really feel like this is the year Toronto wins around. So my answer to your question is yes, I do think they can actually beat Tampa. And now for the final question of today's episode, this one comes from Jason, who says, if Florida, Calgary, and Edmonton don't win in the first round, what do you think the offseason impact will be? Does Gaudreau resign? What happens with McDavid and Draisaitl? Is Florida just stuck with a super team with no cap space and picks that can't win a playoff round? This is a very interesting question. In the case of Florida, I feel like you just run it back with the same team. They just won the President's Trophy, and it's not like they're in a situation like Toronto where it's been, 5 consecutive first round exits. It's only been 1 for Florida. And in the case of Calgary, even if they lose, I definitely still feel like Johnny Gaudreau resigns. Why wouldn't he? Him, Kachuk, Lindholm, they were just one of the best lines in the NHL, maybe the best in the regular season. He had an MVP caliber year. As long as Calgary doesn't try to, be stingy and try to disrespect him with the contract that they offer him, which I don't think they will, I feel like it's very, very likely we see Gaudreau in Calgary again, even if they lose in the first round. Now, in Edmonton's case, it's interesting because McDavid is probably getting fed up. The third period that him and Draisaitl had last night to will the Oilers back into the game was ridiculous. It's really rare in the NHL, which is such a team-oriented sport, that you see just singular players take over a game, but that's exactly what happened in the third period. McDavid and Draisaitl took over. They got the game to overtime, but unfortunately they weren't able to pull it out. And I think McDavid McDavid said something along the lines of, 4 goals should be enough to win a playoff game at the end of the game, which is like, yikes. If I were McDavid and the Oilers do get bounced in the first round, I'd be going to Ken Holland and saying, you got to get a goaltender, you got to do this, you got to do that, and if you don't, then I want out. McDavid is going to go down as one of the greatest NHL players of all time. You don't want to waste so many years of your prime playing on a mediocre team that can't go anywhere in the postseason. I just feel like that loss for them last night was so deflating. Like I said, after how McDavid and Draisaitl took over the game to will them back into it, and now, they go back to LA having to win a game 6 in a very tough building. So that is going to wrap up this episode of the Ask Me Anything series. Again, thank you so much to everybody who left a question on the post. I'm really enjoying these, especially in the playoffs. A lot of great things to talk about. If you guys enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more in the near future, be sure to drop it a like. That is the best way to show your support. And most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll talk to you all soon.